This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and finally, this is the Lenovo ThinkPad Yoga 460 360-degree convertible with the lift and lock keyboard and that special sauce. Like the Yoga 260, it has a Wacom AES digital pen, along with the touchscreen too. Now, this is the successor to the ThinkPad Yoga 14, except when it's not. Here's where the confusion starts. Previously, there was the ThinkPad Yoga 14, but at Best Buy in the United States, that still exists, and it's the same as this, Intel Skylake 6th generation CPUs, but it's actually a little bit better because it has NVIDIA 940M graphics, while the 460 version does not. Is that confusing? Yes, it is. I know. I understand. Anyway, for those of you who are in the United States, I do recommend the Best Buy version sold as a ThinkPad 14. Just make sure it's the 6th generation Skylake and it has the little pen inside, because they still might have the older generations in stock that this one replaces. Anyway, 6th generation Skylake, like I said, you can get a Core i5 or a Core i7 with the 460. The Best Buy version is just a Core i5. You have a backlit keyboard in here, the usual dual band Wi-Fi. It's an Intel 8260 card, and pretty decent battery life. There's a reasonable sized battery in here. We're going to look at it now. So the ThinkPad Yoga 460s, for those of you who think the Yoga 260 is a bit too small, a 12-inch size class there, or you really like the ThinkPad X1 Yoga, but goodness, that's an awful lot of money, but you still want the 14-inch screen size, that Lenovo build, good keyboard, and the pen feature. Oh, the pen feature was really sweet. Of course, it's a 360-degree convertible, so you can use it in tent, stand, and tablet modes, too. It's a versatile enough computer, and it's pretty durably built as well. So inside, after we get over the shock of seeing a silver ThinkPad, yet again, we just did the ThinkPad 13, which is also available in silver. By the way, you can get this in black too if you're a traditionalist. I do personally think that it looks a little more classy in black, because this silver finish looks awfully painted on. And this is carbon fiber under here, so, well, it is basically painted carbon fiber. Anyway, the keyboard here obviously contrasts super well, but even if you get the black one, it does too, because Lenovo always uses a big font and nice white maskings there. It's a backlit keyboard. Hit FN plus spacebar to activate the backlighting. It's a great keyboard. Typical Lenovo, nice travel keyboard there. I'm talking about around 1.5 millimeters or so of key travel going on, and it's the lift and lock kind, which means that when you yoga it, once you put it in complete yoga position, which could be just like that, see how the keys are now flat? Because it raises this bezel up around the keys. The keys aren't moving, but it raises the bezel, it locks the keys, so you're not going to feel the wiggling, which is kind of a weird sensation for these 360-degree laptops that are designed like this. The trackpad will still click, but it does nothing when you take it out of traditional laptop position. The trackpad is Lenovo's usual very good trackpad here. This is buttonless for this section right here, but you get dedicated buttons for the track point, nav point pointer over here, the eraser stick pointer embedded in the keyboard. Works well, settings for gestures, all that usual sort of thing. It's fine. It's not among my favorites. A couple of those Microsoft Precision trackpads are actually nicer to use, but still there are a lot of settings available for this, so I'm not going to complain about it. So for those of you who write a lot, definitely a good experience thanks to the keyboard and a reasonably good trackpad as well. The 14.1-inch IPS display, there is only one display option here, 1920 by 1080, so it's full HD resolution, which is fine for a 14-inch display. It's glossy. There is glare. If I wiggle it, you're probably going to see, well, glare happen. What can I say? Most displays are glossy. That's fine, especially if they support touch. Of course, there's also pen support. There's a silo on the left side of the machine for this pen, and it's something we've seen Lenovo use with other Yoga models like the lovely X1 Yoga. So it charges in about 15 seconds. It'll top you up and get you going, and within a half an hour it'll fully charge or less, and the machine actually tells you that, and you'll get a low battery notification. As long as it's in the silo, see these little metal connectors right here? Well, it's going to charge when it's in the silo. Well, the display itself is not super impressive. I mean, it's not bad looking. That Bunny Rabbit desktop looks pretty nice. But color gamut is weak. It's 66% of sRGB, as you can see here, measured by our Spider 4 Pro colorimeter. 50% of Adobe RGB. So if you're a graphic artist who needs high color fidelity for print or even for web, yeah. But as a budget machine for sketchers and digital painters, it's good enough, I would say. Gamma is perfect at 2.2. 241 nits of brightness. That's pretty good for this price range and this kind of machine. Black levels are good at 0.36, and that's at maximum brightness. And that results in a contrast ratio of 670:1, which is decent. And the white point is pretty tolerable too, 6,700 degrees Kelvin, pretty close to the ideal, 65 to 6,600, and much better than a lot of laptop displays that are 7,100 or 7,200 Kelvin, where the whites are really getting much too blue. So it redeems itself in some ways with pretty, decent calibratable color accuracy, and we have calibrated it. And you're looking at the desktop with calibration on, and I'll just turn it off so you can see it's a little too yellow-green otherwise. Look at the difference there, But with calibration, you can get it pretty darn sweet looking. The port story is very good here. Everything but Ethernet, pretty much. We have, well, that's the charging connector right there for the usual Lenovo rectangular quick charger. This is the docking station connector right here, USB 3.0 port, your combo mic headphone jack, SD card slot, and this little black thing right here is that pen. They didn't make a silver pen to match the silver casing, so they're only available in black. Well, it makes it easier to spot. And on this side, don't get too excited. This is not USB-C. This is a lock slot right here. Lenovo's been pretty reticent to put a lot of USB-C/Thunderbolt 3 in their smaller laptops. And in this price range particularly, we're not going to see that, unfortunately. We do get both HDMI 1.4 and mini DisplayPort 1.2, so you can drive 2 external monitors right there, or even more if you're daisy chaining your display ports, 2 more USB 3.0 ports, and there's your volume and power buttons because you might be using it in tablet or tent mode where you don't have easy access to the keyboard. To access the internals, you remove all of the visible Phillips head screws that you can see right here, plus 3 that are hidden underneath the rubber plugs here. Not these feet, nothing under here, but this, and this. You have to pop these up, use your fingernail or some little skinny pokey tool if you don't have sufficient fingernails. And these are not identical, so put them back in the right place. There's little notches that help you line up and put the right one there. A little bit annoying. I really don't know why they bother with such tidiness. There's no plugs in any of these, is there? But anyway, that is what it is. And then there's lots of plastic clips. Our old friends, the plastic clips. You're going to have to work your way around to get the cover off. And, just give it a yank. It'll come off in the end. And inside you'll see a very almost old-fashioned machine, and that's probably how Lenovo manages to keep the price down here. But for your old-fashioned do-it-yourself upgrader, that's not such a bad thing. And now you can see here we actually have a RAM slot, socketed RAM, not a common thing on an Ultrabook. You can put a 4, 8, or 16 gig RAM module in there, DDR3L. And we have a 2.5-inch drive bay. Whoa, that's kind of retro now. No M.2 SSD here. It's a 7mm height drive, your usual 2.5-inch drive, but it is an SSD, so you can put in aftermarket, easy to find. You can put in whenever you want there. And we have the usual socketed Wi-Fi card, 8260 Intel AC, dual-band Wi-Fi AC with Bluetooth 4.1. And you have access to the battery should you ever need to replace it if it gets old and tired. Our review unit has the Intel Core i5-6200U, 2.3 gigahertz Intel Skylake 6th generation CPU. 8 gigs of RAM, and a 256 gig SSD. Again, your standard 2.5-inch SATA hard drive style format. And here's the score for PC Mark 8. A little lower than we would expect. Really couldn't tell you why that is. It's not thermal throttling or anything like that. This is available only if you get the Yoga 460 version with Intel HD 520 integrated graphics. Geekbench 3, again, kind of a low score there, 2518 and 4932 for the multi-core test and the 64-bit version of the test. And typically we see in the 6,000s to close to 7,000 normally, so I don't know what the story is there. For Crystal Disk Mark, here are our scores, and since this is just a standard SATA interface drive, we don't expect to see high numbers. These are kind of par for the course. That is what it is. It did pretty decently with W Prime, which really shows the CPU power, and it computed Pi in 18.65 seconds, which is around average for a Core i5, so a little bit better showing than the other tests. So odd there that it benchmarks a little bit slower than other machines, but experientially it doesn't feel slow. All right, you artists and note-taking types, this is where it gets exciting. If you want a ThinkPad and you want a pen, a lot of the options are pretty expensive from Lenovo. The ThinkPad X1 Yoga, for example, considerably more expensive than this. What if you want that 14-inch display, but you want the same 2048 levels of pressure sensitivity, Wacom support? You can even install WinTab if you need it. Well, you got it here, and this works beautifully with palm rejection. And I'm not going to do a serious sketch right here, but I'm just going to show you we got pressure sensitivity, the heavy line versus very light drawing. Tracking speed is very good on this. It has the usual, there's jitter if you're trying to draw a straight line slowly. I don't do that. I draw a straight line quickly, and you get, well, straighter lines, but that's not unusual for these digitizers. Palm rejection, I'm resting my hand on the screen, especially since I'm left-handed. We do that all the time. It's really a lovely solution for sketching and painting, and for note-taking, it's a breeze. It's just really wonderful. It's a funny thing about Lenovo's more affordable laptops. They actually have pretty good speakers. Now, these are down-firing. There's a little curve over here, so they're not completely muffled by the desk. But we got down-firing stereo speakers, and they're actually pretty full and pretty loud. They're pleasant enough if you're going to use them to watch a movie or something like that. The battery, again, as you saw, is sealed inside. It's a 4-cell, 53-watt-hour battery. That's a decent capacity battery, and probably particularly because this has just Intel HD 520 integrated graphics, and well, the Core i5 is a 15-watt ULV Ultrabook Frugal CPU. Battery life on this is pretty darn good. I've been averaging 7 hours or so, and that's in a mix of productivity, web browsing, and some streaming video. Now, as this comes up, sometimes some of you get a lot lower battery life, and this has been in the news lately. When I do these tests, I use the Microsoft Edge browser. It's lightweight, it's pretty touch-friendly. Yeah, you don't get all those cool Chrome extensions and stuff, but if you use Chrome, that's a lot heavier on CPU utilization and thus on battery life. So, subtract an hour or more if you're going to use Chrome. And that's true of any of the laptops that we reviewed here. When I'm quoting the battery life for our recent reviews, it's using the Edge web browser. So that's pretty good. And even with the NVIDIA 940M in the previous generation, that had that as well, we reviewed it, that didn't really impact battery life much because the NVIDIA 940M is a lower end. It's like the top of the low end for NVIDIA dedicated graphics. It's 2 gigs of DDR5 VRAM, and it will give you a little extra punch if you're gaming or video editing or something like that. So it really is worth it if you can get it with that. But it is a modest bump, but enough to be noticeable. If you're playing games, easier games like Left 4 Dead 2, easier on the computer, I mean, it will make it more playable, likewise for BioShock Infinite, those sort of games. It's not going to make you play Battlefield 4 on ultra settings and 1080p resolution. This is still an Ultrabook. Even if you got the 940M, it ain't gonna do it. But you might get it 720p in low settings. So that's the Lenovo ThinkPad Yoga 460. Again, it sells for under $1,000, a little bit under if you go for the Core i5 like we did. Even if you configure it up with the Core i7, a higher capacity SSD drive, it's not going to push much higher than $1,000. So literally a pretty solid laptop for the money. The usual ThinkPad durability, a very good keyboard on here. And the only thing I once again would say is if you are in the United States, go for the Best Buy version instead, because you'll get that switchable, lower end still helps dedicated graphics, the NVIDIA 940M. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more cool tech videos.